Welcome to the Let's Talk Food podcast, where we have deep conversations about anything and everything surrounding with food. I'm your host, April Fontenot, and tonight, guys, is going to be a really, really special one, guys. But first and foremost, we have made it to season 2. Yay! So excited. Season 2, back at it. I am so excited, guys, and I hope you are as well. And if you are a new listener, welcome to the show. You have landed with the right podcast, not the wrong podcast, but the right podcast. But tonight is going to be so exciting, guys. Can you believe it? We have made it to season 2. This is not only exciting, but a major milestone for me, new listeners. As I started this podcast right before the Christmas holiday, been going strong ever since. And I just want to thank my faithful listeners as well for making this possible. And because you believed in me, we're still going strong. So I've made it to a new season, guys, where we're going to start it out with a bang and keep it going for sure, guys. But new listeners, if you don't know, you've, like I said, tuned into the best podcast in the land, not the wrong podcast, but the best podcast, where we love on one another and support one another. And we're a community of like-minded folk, from food lovers to health junkies, science lovers, art lovers, you name it. And new listeners, if you don't already know my background, I'm an artistic chef, native Houstonian, a mother of 4. I have my own food delivery and catering service, Cooppies American Cuisine and Seafood, and that's spelled Coopies, here in Houston, Texas, guys. So yeah, when you get time, go back and binge listen to episode 1 and play it all the way through, guys. But also, new listeners, I'm still going strong as I'm in the favoritechef.com competition, and that's FAV, like Victor, chef.com. And I'm also in the Superbomb competition. If you want to vote for me, guys, you can go to the superbomb.org as well. But I'm pleased asking for your votes, guys, as I will be forever grateful. All right. Well, I also want to let you know that I will be posting the links on the episode along with my social skills later on at the end of the show here, guys. Well, tonight I have a very, very special treat for you. Remember those guest appearances I've been promising? Well, the day is finally here, guys. Before I introduce my guest, how has your week been? Anyone catch up on any good movies lately? How is your Easter weekend going? Oh my God, my Easter it's going pretty good. Now, I know for Good Friday, we're supposed to, drink wine, eat the fish, eat the bread. I didn't get around to doing that, but it's okay. Maybe next year, right? All right, guys. But yeah, I mean, it's been a really, really great weekend this weekend, and I'm so happy that you guys are here. So speaking of that, tonight, guys, I have a very, very special guest here, guys. When I tell you this guy is so smart and so amazing, guys, the work he has put out there is nothing short of the best. From his delectable yet artistic dishes, from catering for major NBA teams, creating unimaginable content on all of his social media platforms, guys, from writing a book and so much more, he is ready to tell it like it is and educate us on the art and science of historical cooking tonight, guys. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the one, the only Jay Reifel, guys.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Jay. How are you tonight?
Marvelous.
Awesome, awesome. I am so happy you're on the show, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy week to bless us with your presence. So, I'm sure the lovely listeners want to know how you got started. Tell us about that and give us a fun fact about you.
I came to chefing in kind of a strange and roundabout way. I actually worked in the film industry for many years. I came up doing film production, and then I worked as a screenwriter for many years, which is why I still kind of see everything in terms of stories and narrative. But I kind of burned out like really hard at a certain point because, I was either being asked to write things that I didn't like and try to make them work, or I was writing things that I did like that would sell and then not get made, and it's kind of soul destroying after a while. So I actually threw it all over and I moved to a farm and learned to bake bread, and that kind of started my cooking journey. Like, I'd always cooked and I always loved cooking, and I sort of had this epiphany that that was this one thing that I just really enjoyed the process of. I love the immediacy of it because it's the exact opposite of writing professionally, right? You make food, you put it in front of people, and they eat it, and everybody's happy, hopefully. So
Wow.
I came to New York and I went to pastry school because I was actually more comfortable with like I come from a very hard science background, so I was more comfortable with like weights and measures and this very technical orientation. And then I worked in molecular gastronomy in the restaurant scene. That's where I trained. And somehow it all came around to me working in historical cuisine from historical, actual primary source documents. So connecting people to their past and to the history of the world through the medium of food. And that's been the most fun I've ever had.
That's amazing. I mean, from screenwriting to a farm and now this big time chef. I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, I totally love that. I really, really like, how you're just all around talented, and we don't get that much often, but yeah, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Thank you so
So,
much.
I want to know, how do you tell a story through your food?
So I think the question is like, what story are you trying to tell? And lots of times I'm simply like the subtext of a lot of what I do is making people realize how amazing people are and have always been. I think there's this easy trap to fall into when you think that people from the past were somehow really, really different and less sophisticated and that they weren't intelligent the way we are now because, they didn't have computers. They didn't have algebra. Well, they had algebra 1,000 years ago. So I think the thing is there's a level of sophistication that goes back 2,000 years. And that's the real thing that I try to connect people with. But often it's that things don't change more than anything else that I try to connect people with. Like one of my favorite ways to tell, a story through food is there's actually a great example that I use, which is I took an actual story. It's actually, I take historical dishes from Apicius, which is the first true cookbook from a little over
Wow.
2,000 years ago from ancient Rome. And there's also a book called the Satyricon, which is the first like satirical novel, which is also written in like, that's the first century Common Era, right? And there's a famous story in that where there's this guy Trimalchio, and he's really a nouveau riche jerk, right? And he's kind of ostentatious. He has this ridiculous banquet that everything is so over the top, and that's really what that part of the story is about. That's showing that this guy's
Right.
a little bit of a jerk. And there's a famous story where he has this elaborate freestanding pig brought out, and then when the chef cuts the belly, all the intestines fall out of the table, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're a terrible chef! You forgot to
Right.
gut the animal." But then the chef goes, "Oh no, wait." And he demonstrates that the intestines are actually delicious sausages, and everyone's
Wow.
delighted. So when I recreate that, I use two actual recipes taken from this 2,000-year-old cookbook, one for sausages and one for a pig roasted in honey, and I recreate it. But not only do you get this sense that you're connecting with this moment of the past, but also you're kind of laughing at the kind of jerk that you might want to laugh at today. And that's where the joy is for me.
My God. I mean, that is hilarious. I mean, I could just imagine the look on their faces, but yeah, he kind of looks like a complete butthole, right? But in actuality, he's like, wait, no, this is the art, guys. So yeah, that's an amazing story. And it's so good to know that we can, as chefs or artists, that we can actually be artistic and be creative and come up with ideas and different ways to display our food. And in this case, he's like, no, wait. I mean, you guys thinking I'm doing something to be an idiot or I'm being sarcastic, but it's really art. This is my food. This is sausage. But yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure that you did a really good job as well. For you listeners, if you don't know, my God, Mr. J Rifle, his content is so amazing, guys. I saw some of it on TikTok and Instagram, and I'll have him leave those social skills later. But I'll tell you, he's not your ordinary chef. I mean, the content is out of this world. I love the comedic side. And I think you're doing a really amazing job. So that's why I kind of wanted to know, how do you tell a story? How does this all play into the history and the art and the science? But this is great. I'm just blown away. I mean, when I say, I tell you, I was so impressed, so excited when I saw his content, and I mean, he's like no other, you know. But speaking of that, what are some ingredients, or are the ingredients hard to source when you're making these beautiful dishes?
I think we're incredibly lucky. And I'm especially incredibly lucky because I live in New York City and I actually live in Queens, which is
Yeah.
one of the most diverse ethnically and food environments and linguistic environments in the world. Like, it's amazing. But also, you can
Oh,
order stuff online now. I have cooked with so many, like, I will put the crazy ingredients that I have cooked with against absolutely anyone. So, I mean, I've
awesome.
served bear meat with fermented camel's milk to
Whoa.
fine dining people at the James Beard House, which was just, just it's really fun to do that. And like the first time I served bear meat, and it's in an ancient Mongolian stew, right? I was like, well, some
Whoa.
people are going to balk. So I did the same dish also with
Yeah.
beef, just to, so people like, okay, I'm afraid of eating bear, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the joyous thing was nobody ordered the beef. Everybody's like, look, if we're going to do this, we're here. The hardest ingredient I personally have ever tried to find, believe it or not, is something called a giant water bug extract. And it's used
Never heard of
in
it.
certain Southeast Asian cuisines. Parts of Thailand, parts of Cambodia. And a giant water bug is quite literally a giant water bug. It looks like an enormous cockroach. Right? And a
Oh,
traditional thing you will do is you'll actually cut it with a pair of scissors and you will squeeze its guts basically into a very spicy fish sauce. But the crazy thing is it smells like Jolly Ranchers. Like, it smells like it's not gross at all. And I have some. And I spent literally days upon days of going to like every tiny Chinese market in Chinatown trying to find a bottle of this stuff. And I finally found it. And I always show it to people. I'm like, come on, smell it. And they're like, no, no. I won't. Yeah, I'm not just smell it. And the look on their faces every time is priceless because it really smells more just like an artificial flavoring than anything else. It doesn't, you would never in a million years guess that you're smelling insect guts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I would have kind of cringed as well. And back to that bear meat, by the way, I want to kind of just elaborate on that for a little bit. And this is great. I mean, and yeah, I know that sounds kind of strange, right, listeners? But the bear meat, I think that's really funny because you're saying that you use the beef plus the bear. You know, for me, I think I would have been a little nervous. But I mean, those are some brave guests. You're amazing. I mean, I don't think I could ever play around with that. So that's what I'm saying, listeners. I mean, when I tell you Mr. J Reifel, he is the best of the best. And I mean, see this out there. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So back to the insect as well. Yeah, that sounds very strange. So is that one of the strangest ingredients you worked
That's
with,
certainly
or is
one of
there anything else that
that's certainly one of the hardest to find. And, not sure if it's strange. I mean, I've eaten a lot of insects. And I mean, if you think about it, there's lots of, it sounds gross, but lots of people eat insects all over the world. It's quite common, whether it's like large grub worms, which are roasted all over the place, certainly places in Africa, they eat like, mapani worms, which are basically taste like bacon. Mexicans eat chapulines, which are fried grasshoppers, which are great. If
right?
you like potato chips, you probably like chapulines. If you can find the small ones, like the bigger they get, the more like, chitiny they kind of get. They're more like fingernaily. But if you get the little tiny ones, they're just delicious. And you do like chili and lime, and they're great. I think the other strangest thing that I have ever eaten is in the Amazon jungle. There's a critter called palm weevil, and it's a beetle, and it lays an egg inside the fruit of a palm tree that falls on the ground, right? And the only thing that grub eats is the nut that's inside this palm fruit. So you pick it up off the ground and you cut the top off it, and there's this worm inside about the size of a tangerine segment that's alive. And it's really tricky the first time you do this because then you just pop it in your mouth and you chew it up. And it tastes like coconut, but it's totally horrifying.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that I mean the grasshopper and the insects, I don't know, Jay. I mean,
Because
you're a
also you
brave
can
soul.
learn a
I don't think
lot.
I could do it, but
I
come on.
think I was gonna say you can really learn a lot from ingredients because if you think about Thai food and like I'm old enough to remember when Thai food was like a new thing and people were like, have you heard of this new thing, Thai food? And I think if people knew then that that delicious savory flavor they were getting was fish sauce, which is made from fermented fish. It's made from rotted fish. I think they would have been horrified. And frankly, if you smell raw fish sauce, it's pretty aggressive, right? But that deep, like umami that you get in, food with fish sauce in it is amazing. So I think people are at least they're coming around now. They're a little more open to understanding ingredients in a different way. And I think every cuisine often has a couple ingredients that might define it or that make it really different from other cuisines, whether that's weird or not. Like something that I think about a lot is how to capture what the soul of a cuisine is. Middle Eastern food from the Middle Ages, which, I hesitate to say the Middle Ages because at that period in history, the culture of, say, 10th century Baghdad it was not, when we think of Middle Ages, we think of European Middle Ages. We think of the Dark Ages, a real low point. But this was an incredible flowering of culture, right? And one of the things that really defines that cuisine was this love of sour things, but in like incredibly amazing gradations. Like they cooked with all these different kinds of vinegars and spiced vinegars and the juice of unripe grapes and all these different kind of fermented dairy products like buttermilk and whey, and then they would cook it down and they would make all these different variants of it, and it's just incredibly sophisticated. And those aren't like weird or gross ingredients, but the fact that they had this palate that was so varied on a specific thing that we don't think of in the same way that they do. We don't think of high cuisine as being, oh, look at the amazing perfection of sourness. I mean, I think now we do. I think now people are really understanding like what, salt, fat, acid, heat, acid, brightness, what that lends to a dish. But like the sophistication that they had 1,000 years ago in that part of the world is remarkable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That is so awesome. And I just wow. Yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah, speaking of that, what materials do you work from and what are the recipes like from different periods of history?
I mean, we're incredibly lucky now to live in an age where you can get, online books that are 1,000 years old, that I don't have to go to some dusty library and dig it up to find it. There's amazing stuff going back 2,000 years from all across the world that's in translation, because a lot of these are written in all these different languages. And one thing I have learned is that those translators are the coolest and most giving people. Like if you reach out to a translator who spends their life translating obscure things and you're like, hey, I'm a chef and I work in this stuff, they will like get back to you. They will help you out. They will answer your questions, which is completely amazing. But I think there's a huge variety of source materials that I worked from. And that's one of the things that I find like incredibly kind of inspiring. Like again, if I go back to 10th century Baghdad, the cookbook I use from there is one of the greatest cookbooks in human history. It's just unbelievable. It's huge. It's so sophisticated. And it's filled with poetry and stories. But then again, if you look at like European cookbooks from
Uh-huh.
everything going back 1,000 years, they're terrible. And I mean that in the nicest way possible.
I can
They're like,
imagine.
take this and take this and take this and cook it and serve it forth. And there's no weights and measures. There's very, very little explanation. And that goes on until maybe the high Renaissance in Italy when that starts to change. So like that part where we think of like, oh, they're really like, the acme of European culture. That's when they're catching up to the Middle East in the 10th century. So like 700 years later, 500 years later, they're finally catching up to that. But there is a lot of scholarship, and we have to ask ourselves like, who are these cookbooks? If you have a cookbook that's from Europe in the 1400s, right? Who is that for, right? Because think about it. If you're a chef in that period, you grew up in a kitchen. You have been cooking your whole life, and here's 60, 70 recipes that are a list of ingredients. And frankly, lots of times, if you look at like the recipes that I write for myself, that you write for yourself as a professional, it's like it's a list of ingredients and some, some volumes and measures and stuff like that. And then I know, if it's a cream butter cake, I know the procedure and I just do it. So a lot of the times, those cookbooks that I'm working from are this, this is an age before printing a lot of times. So these are a handmade book, which was incredibly valuable and incredibly expensive. And also all all the things that are in there, a lot of them, which are like spices, nutmeg, black pepper, white sugar. These things in that period are incredibly expensive.
Right.
So actually, what a lot of those books were actually for was for the woman of a house, of a major household, to kind of keep tabs on expenditures, to know what should be in a dish, and to control those purse strings, because that's a time when women are starting to really run these households, right? So that's
Right.
probably what they're for. They're not really for, a home cook who wants to try a new recipe. Because the truth is, and I always have to kind of, add this as a caveat, that most of the food that was eaten by most people through human history are grain stews, pulses, lentils, boiled grain, maybe a potato, right? So if there's a
Right.
book that has a recipe, that is food for the ultra, ultra rich. I will be the first to admit this, If you had meat more than once or twice a year, if it's not Easter, in 14th century France, you are a noble or a very rich merchant or something. So to have all these recipes, particularly recipes that have a lot of spices, and remember that spices are we're thought of as having magical healing properties, and really capital M magical, right? But also any spice
Right.
you had in Europe had come maybe from Indonesia, across the sea to India, to China, by a camel train maybe, across to Alexandria in Egypt, and then on a boat across to Venice, maybe on another boat if it got to France or Britain, England. That thing traveled for
Right.
months and months and months. That's why they're so expensive, So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
But those are the
that's
stories I'm trying to
amazing.
tell.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have some great stories, I'll tell you. Yeah, listeners, I mean, this is really amazing, and I really like the part where you kind of elaborate on, how the history changed with, the spices and how the women, come into play, to help the household. And that's so, that's a great thing because that's what's happening today. I mean, and I hate to say about the roles in the home, but most of us, we have the woman in the kitchen, but things have changed over time as we have the husbands doing the same. But that is so true, especially in my home. I love spices. I like to cook. I like to experiment with different things. So I think that's pretty amazing. And as far as what you're stating about online, that is so true because a lot of us do not actually pick up an actual hard cover book anymore. We're going online, finding recipes, Googling things. I mean, you name it. What is it? Pinterest. I mean, there's so many other sources out there, but you can never go wrong with the history and just a good old fashioned book. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. I love that. And like I said, I love what you're doing. I think this is a really, really great topic tonight. And I'm sure the listeners are thinking the same. Yeah. So how do you normally put together like a whole dinner? Like, what's your process on that?
So I think that's a really it's a really fun thing. It's a little bit tricky because if you're doing a modern style dinner that has a series of dishes and ends with a dessert like an American style or French style like modern dinner, that's kind of ahistorical for most of history, particularly the concept of dessert. Dessert is like a really new idea. And in fact, the kind of dinner that we think of as a normal dinner now, or you go to a restaurant, right, is actually what's called service à la Russe, which means Russian style service, because before that you had service à la Française, which is French style service, which was basically like all the food on the table at the same time, hot food, cold food, sweet food, not sweet foods necessarily at the end, usually in a couple of really big courses. Like there'd be like bunch of dishes, take all those away, a bunch of new dishes, take all away. And then, eventually you get this like series of dishes, and then you get some like really, like very sophisticated ideas like you must have two soups and you must end with fruits and nuts. And the weird thing about that, like ending with cheese, right? Like ending with a cheese course at dinner
Right.
is actually goes back to like Greek and Roman ideas of humoral medicine that you were going to close your stomach by eating dairy products. So it's like actually that practice is thousands of years old in theory. But so the way, I will look at the dishes that I want to cook, right? And one of my rules is I don't want to change a dish precipitously to adapt it to a modern palate, right? I'm going to go through all the dishes, try a bunch of different ones, and find one that the way it's supposed to be, people today will like. And there's a lot of stuff they won't like. So I will pick those dishes, and then you ask yourself, which feel like an appetizer? Which do you make small? Which are big? What's the centerpiece of your meal? If there's a grand meat dish, that's probably going to be the centerpiece. And then you find some sweets, and this is the to totally cheat. You put those at the end and say it's dessert, but there probably would have been at the beginning, in the middle. It's that notion of this progression is very, very different. It becomes more and more specific to different cultures as it goes on. You read about these like Ottoman feasts where they would just bring 50 dishes in a row, like one after another, after another, and after another, because this show of excess was this show of power. And like you would never, also like most feasts throughout history, like people weren't eating, it wasn't two people and their kids at a table. It was if you're rich enough to afford this kind of food, it was you and your retainers and their retainers and all these people, like 40 people in a room eating. So, I mean, the other end of the spectrum, when you think of like Versailles, France, there was this horrible spectacle of food where every day the king and queen would come out and they would get served this endless, endless, endless amount of food that they didn't necessarily want. Like Marie Antoinette was not a big eater. Like she didn't want to eat in public, really wanted simple stuff, but like had to
Mm-hmm.
sit there for like hours in front
Right.
of the entire assembled court and be brought crayfish and frogs legs and just birds and just everything. Well, her husband ate like a complete pig, but so then you just kind of use that as a framework. And when I'm cooking for regular people or in my cookbook, where I'm creating a dish that makes sense in a modern, like to the way we think about a meal, the two things that I'm doing are trying to make it feel like a
Right.
well-structured meal, and that there is some implicit story in it, like, and that all the various dishes are going to highlight something about that time, something about that cuisine, something about that culture.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, like I said, yeah, this is totally amazing, guys. And I mean, I don't know. I've got to learn from you, you know? Yeah, but when I say artistic chef, guys, I mean, this is exactly right. Yeah, this is so amazing. So yeah, so you talk about the art and science of historical cooking. Which parts are the art and which parts are the science?
That is a great question. I think a lot of times the more basic, the art I think is flavoring. The art is the same art that so many other chefs, use in the kitchen. I'm sure you use it in your day to day. I think the science, particularly here, is there's a lot of research and there's a lot of trying to understand what were the ovens that were used in this period. I mean, obviously, I cook in a modern kitchen. I cook with modern appliances. I'm a single person because throughout human history, the great labor-saving device was a servant, right? It wasn't a food processor, it was a servant. One of my favorite examples of a progression of technology
Mhm.
in the kitchen was that roasting was really big in, say, Tudor England, and one of the worst jobs in a kitchen was called a spit boy. And what a spit boy did was he sat by the fire and slowly turned a spit that meat was on, right? And he's sitting there for hours by a roaring fire, and it's really miserable because if the meat is cooking, so is he. And then one of the brilliant innovations someone came up with was like, wait, this is real. This is absolutely real. You put a dog on a treadmill in a box that's next to the hearth. It's like around the corner so the dog's not too hot, right? And the treadmill is now attached to the spit. And the dog walks on the treadmill and turns the spit. So that was like that was the food pro in like the 15th century. And then subsequently, when clockwork comes in, they actually would have a piece of clockwork that you would wind it up and that would turn the spit. And that was an amazing technological information. So now we have all the crazy stuff we have now in sous vide and microwave oven, which there's a place for. But yeah, I think there's always a melding of art and science. And it's very strange for me because I come from a very hard science background, and when I came up in restaurants, the places that I trained at were either like molecular gastronomy type restaurants or multi-Michelin stars, so sophisticated, molecular adjacent, lots of modern techniques, applying pastry techniques to savory food and liquid nitrogen and this and that. So that I take that kind of experiential background, and it's always something you can lean on when you try to understand the method of cooking a dish from a different period.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, like I said, this has been amazing. But now the part about the spit, I don't know about that. I mean, 15th century, come on now. Yeah, I know the listeners are like, what? But no, I mean, like I said, this is really amazing. And I'm a history lover as well. And of course, science is one of my favorite subjects. This has been really, really great and very informative. And it sounds like you know your stuff, and I definitely enjoy it. Yeah, but guys, I mean, this has been really, really amazing. And I mean, I know you feel the same. And, like I said, from your dishes to your content, I mean, you're just an all around guy. And like I said, I think you're doing amazing work out there. And I mean, I love it. And I know, everyone that checks you out, they love it. And the listeners are going to do the same. But yeah, so speaking of that, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on
What are
Instagram
your
and
socials?
TikTok at jreifel, Jayreifel. You can go to jreifel.com. It's my website. It has all my other podcasts and articles and materials. You can reach out to me directly. I'm out there. I make some very, very silly videos online. You can check those out. I give some, basic cooking advice as well, doing kind of absurd things sometimes. You will, you'll have fun with it. I'm trying to have fun, and it seems to be working out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean you seem like you have a lot of fun with it. My favorite, I don't remember the name, but there was one you had with the Alice in Wonderland. I was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." Guys, you have got to check his content out. When I tell you, Mr. Rifle is so amazing and so creative. I mean, not only is he a renowned chef and he's doing all these other things, but the content is amazing. I mean, I just crack up laughing at some of it. And some of it is just like, oh my, you guys are gonna learn a lot. So definitely check him out. Definitely do that. And it's been a real joy tonight having you on the show, and I look forward to having you on here again, hopefully here. But guys, I mean,
I
this
would
has
love to
been
come back.
fun as always. And is there anything that you'd like to leave with the guests? Any nuggets or anything that you normally, for those that are looking into going into culinary arts or want to be a chef, are there any takeaways for that tonight?
That's a rough life. That's what I will say. It's worked out for me, and I'm incredibly happy. It's like being an actor. When someone says to you, "Hey, I think I want to be an actor," if they're your friend, your first piece of advice should be, "Don't do that." And if they just don't listen to you and they don't want to and they're willing to like go through what it takes to become that, great. I think kind of working in food is the same. It can be really rough.
Right.
But for some people, it's just the right choice. And for me, it really was.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I know for me, and new listeners, if you don't know, like I said, go back and binge listen. You'll hear about my background, but it took me quite some time to step out on faith. What do I say? Have that mustard seed of faith. But yeah, for those of you that, enjoy cooking, you've already kind of figured out what you want to do, go for it. Do not be afraid to step out on faith, like I just said, and put your name out there. I mean, Mr. J Rifle, he's doing it. He's doing it big, and now he's out here with NBA stars and just doing it up. And I know you also said you have your own restaurant. Is that right? In New York?
I run a catering company, so like I have a day job. All this, what makes all the historical stuff tick, it makes it all work out. Is that I have an excellent job with a fantastic team of people, and yeah, among other things, we do a very significant amount of sports catering, mostly Major League Baseball and NBA. But it's a good business, and I do all the normal catering stuff. I have a phenomenal team of really talented people, which allows us to be able to do a huge diversity of various kinds of things for various people. But yeah, that's my day job.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that is so wonderful. And like I said, new listeners and faithful listeners, this is Mr. J Reifel, guys. I mean, this has been a really, really good episode tonight. And yeah, check him out. And like I always say, I'll leave all of the links and social skills at the end of the episode here. If you want to go back and play it, you can do that as well. But it has been a real joy to have you on the show tonight, Jay. I mean, I couldn't be more happy. And thank you for being the first guest for season two. How exciting, right? So, yeah, guys, we're starting out season two with a bang. Jay Rifle here. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, like I said, guys, this has been fun tonight, as always. And if you'd like to send your funny stories, sad stories, give feedback on the show, or collaborate with me as well, please send your emails to april8@outlook.com. And don't forget to check me out, guys. I have my food delivery and catering service as well. Check me out on Instagram at Coopie, COOPIES, Catering and Seafood. I'm also on TikTok, Coopie, COOPIES.American, and on my YouTube page at April, APRIL, Fontenot, F as in Frank, ONTENOT, for the Let's Talk Food podcast. Well, guys, I hope this episode has been fun, impactful, and enlightening. And I hope everyone will continue to enjoy your Easter holiday weekend and remember the reason for Easter. Be safe out there. And Jay, like I said, I've had such a good time tonight. I hope you did as well. And yes, new listeners, faithful listeners, please go check him out. We'll definitely do that. And be safe out there. You guys have been listening to the Let's Talk Food podcast. I'm your host, April Fontenot. Peace, light, and love. You have a great night, guys.